Hi, and welcome to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly program about finance, money, and investing on Radio Northern Beaches and broadcast nationally on the Community Radio Network around Australia. I'm your host, Ray Treverson from OTG Capital, and today we are welcoming Peter Bobbin. Now, Peter, I might just throw back to you and say, can you explain where you're from? And we'll then we'll talk a little bit about the ASA, the Australian Shareholders Association, and that's the link that I've certainly come to you from. But I'll throw back to you, and if you can explain to the audience a little bit about your background and who you are and why we're chatting.
Well, thanks, Ray. My background is I'm a lawyer. Now, as a lawyer, of course, I have a law degree. But my first professional career was, in fact, as an accountant. So I actually also have an accounting degree, and I started off as an auditor of all things for some of the major firms, both here and in the UK. After attaining those degrees, I then obtained a master's degree with a high distinction average in pure tax, and I taught at university for some 12 years on a part-time basis. Now, I taught in superannuation and tax law matters, and it's that superannuation and tax law matters that brought me into where we are and what we're going to talk about today. Because over my career, including my time as an accountant, I looked at life from a very practical and legal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I've developed, or I've identified, just the valuable importance of good, and I do mean good, estate planning. And it's that background that's brought us to what we're about to talk about today, right?
Well, I must say, I love the internet, and I'm an ex-IT person myself, even though I've been in finance now for about 5 or 6 years, or 7, coming up to 7 now. But being able to go back and do a little bit of research about who you are, I also note that you've put some very timely submissions into government previously about financial advice, which is very near and dear to my heart because I talk to and interact with a lot of financial advisors. I'm an ex-advisor myself, gave it away to become a fund manager, but I guess it's one of those interesting areas that when we keep talking about what is good advice and what is not, that's part of the reason why I started Dollars and Making Sense in trying to educate and provide content to people that would, I guess, hopefully get them a little bit better armed, forewarned, forearmed. And I'm not suggesting that the whole finance industry are filled with sharks, but there's a little bit more than usual, I'd say, in our area of expertise. So I guess from that perspective, we've had people before talking about estate planning, and they've been very, very useful, and we've had a lot of good interaction. And I don't think you can ever get boring about talking about estate planning because there's just so much to cover. And I think before we get into the detail about what we're going to talk about today, you also do a lot of work with the Australian Shareholders Association. And that's how I found who you were, because when I was talking to Rachel and people at the ASA, they said, you need to talk to Peter, because Peter does this course. And so I think if we do a little bit of a shameless plug right now for the ASA, being a not-for-profit, if you can explain to the audience a little bit about what you do with the ASA and estate planning, and then we'll get into some of the discussion that we're going to chat about today.
So over my years, the ASA has invited me to give presentations to their members. And that's principally about, again, the importance of estate planning and the various issues and attributes of estate planning that are really important, really very important for people to consider. Mm-hmm. And it sort of became so popular that the ASA thought it'd be good to put together what they've now called a masterclass. And so there's a whole series, some 20 or so of these little videos that are all accessible through the ASA website, very cheap. So I get sold very cheap, Ray. I think which as a lawyer, of course. Anyway, I won't go there.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. A cheap lawyer and a cheap accountant. Hard to believe. I'm still not. I'm not convinced. But let's not digress. Let's continue on.
I think it's $50 for members of the ASA, and there is a non-member price, and you get opportunity to review all of those little videos. And the feedback I've got, actually, which is very pleasing for me, the feedback I've got, and it all goes to the not-for-profit association. So, and the feedback I've got is that people have got something from it, something important for them from it, and that is the ability.
And I guess when you think about it, the ability that you've segregated and segmented 20 discrete pieces of information that you can then compartmentalize into 20 presentations around estate planning, I think really covers the width and breadth of, the complexities, but also hopefully that there is a lot of content and some good stuff out there for not a lot of money. And also there's a certain element of free that comes with the ASA as well, that you can go and find this. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are in that unenviable situation around estate planning, not all is lost. There is some really good resource out there, and that's part of what we're doing today. So today, what we're going to be talking about are 5 key documents that we need to consider when we are thinking about wills, testaments, estate planning, etc. Now, without sounding too obvious, I guess the first one's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's the actual will. It's the last will and testament.
Look, Ray, it is. But let's not talk about those 5 documents just yet.
Okay.
Let's talk about how to approach estate planning. Because look, over my time, I've had a number of people that have said to me, I don't care about a will. I don't give a bugger. I'll be dead. and you've got to say to yourself, well, it's a fair comment. Or others will say, look, it's just too complex. Or they'll say they're going to challenge. What I like to do is help people to take another perspective. Is it too complex? I'm going to say no, it's not. It isn't. It's voluminous. There's a lot to it, but it's not complex. It's just working through it. Is someone going to challenge? Hey, the answer is maybe, but more likely the answer is no, they won't. And so having something is what's important. But it's that first one I want to get to. That one that says, Peter, I don't care about doing a will. I don't give a bugger. I'll be dead. And I accept what they're saying because it's true. But that's not the way to look at estate planning. You see, the key to looking at real estate planning is to be selfish and greedy. The point here is, I mean, let's be clear. I would be dead. The point is right. But that's the dumb way of looking at estate planning. You see, Ray, the single most important will, and that's what we'll be talking about shortly, but the single most important will in my estate plan is not mine, it's my wife's. And I'm a survivor of it. That is the most important will. The single most important will for my children is not theirs, it's mine. And it's what I've done that's important. The real way to approach estate planning is to ask yourself, what has someone else done or not done such that if it happens to them, it'll impact upon you? Let me rephrase that again. What has someone else done or not done such that if it happens to them, it'll impact upon you? Little things, like real little things. If you own a house jointly with another person, just happily own a house jointly with another person, and well, that other person suffers a disabling event, right? They're on the golf course and the stroke they had is not quite the stroke they wanted. And then now an incapable person. Who do you now own the house with? Like, who are you dealing with in terms of the home? The short answer is, unless there is a second document we'll talk about, Ray, the enduring power of attorney, you're actually now in partnership with the trustee and guardian, an official government body. So the important point there is, what has that other person done where you share ownership of this home that has a result of protecting you? Real estate planning is you as a survivor. What has my wife done in terms of her superannuation, her interest in the home, her bank accounts? If she's lucky enough to have investments, her shares. What has she done? Because it's her will that will then set me up or place me in binds and strictures for the future. So the key to estate planning, Ray, and to answer that question, I don't give a bugger because I'm dead, that's the wrong way of looking at it.
Yeah.
The right way of looking at it is to be selfish and greedy. Now, obviously, it's also useful to do it with your partner in life. And when you are doing that conversation with your partner in life, I actually recommend a few tools. I don't have them all with me, but one of them is a few blank sheets of paper. Another is a
pen,
and a few good glasses of red wine.
Well, that sounds
Or
great.
white wine, or whiskey, or tea, whichever works for you. Because effectively, what we're going to do is we're going to sit down, and I'm going to say to my wife, Penny, well, what have you done to protect me? And she'll say, well, Peter, what have you done to protect me? And by taking that self-centered approach, we actually end up creating a fantastic estate plan. So whoever says, I don't care about a will, I don't give a bugger, I'm dead, they are 100% right, but they are looking at it in so much the wrong way. Look at it the right way. What happens to someone else around them? Let me give you this one. Do you know my daughter's, I'll use my son on this occasion. So my eldest son, he's married, lives in Canberra. They have a child. So I want to know what my daughter-in-law has done as far as her estate plan is concerned. Because you see, if my daughter-in-law has set things up to protect her husband, my son, and her child, my grandchild, then the probability of my son and grandchild needing to move back into my home at the age of 64 is probably managed.
I see where you're coming from now, for sure. So look, it's a good time right now to take a short break, because we need to give a few messages to our listeners around disclaimers and the like. So you're here on Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money and investing. And I'm Ray Treverson from OTG Capital, and with me is Peter Bobbin, and we are talking about estate planning, and we're going to be back in just a moment. Hi, and thank you for listening to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly radio program about finance, money and investing on Radio Northern Beaches and nationally on the Community Radio Network around Australia. The views, comments and opinions aired during our program should not be construed or viewed as financial advice. Any commentary is general advice only and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation or needs. You should consider whether the advice is suitable for you and your personal circumstances. If in doubt, you should contact an authorised licensed financial planner. We welcome questions and feedback, and you can get in touch with us via our blog, social media channels or email. Please search for Dollars and Making Sense in your favourite podcast platform, or check out our blog at otgcapital.com.au/blog. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money and investing. Today we're talking about estate planning. Now, Peter, before we went to the break, I think the conversation was fascinating, because you took me back a couple of steps. So rather than diving headlong into these 5 documents, I think that idea of being selfish and greedy and putting that self-interest at the very front of your conversation, I think is a great way of looking at it, because I think many people look at wills as being, what are you going to do with your estate and divvy it out? But I think that the causal relationship between what happens if things don't go the way you plan, and using a stroke, I think, is a great example, or incapability. And there are, we can talk about risk products and TPB and a whole range of other things, but in essence, I think being able to set up and have that conversation, I think, is really important. So thank you, I guess, for setting me straight in that. And I think it's that nice cold slap in the face that you sort of go, oh, gee, I mean, that's not a bad way of looking at it. And again, a different person, a different perspective, I think, is always really valuable. So thank you for that. So look, we'll talk about some of these documents that people need to consider. And the first one that we alluded to before we went to our break is the actual will itself. So do you have a stock standard way that you've detailed in your masterclass for the ASA on how to approach getting a will together?
Oh, yeah. No, I do. And I'll go back to what I said before. It all starts with a blank sheet of paper, that pen or whatever you wish, and that wine glass of red wine.
A very complex set of tools there, a very complex set of tools.
And the simplicity of it is, you just write at the very top of the first page, I'm alive. My wife has died, or my partner in life, I should say, has died. My children are alive. What do I want to see happen? And then you just write down what you'd like to see happen. And that may be, I continue to live in the family home, I have all of the wealth in my name, and I live a great life. Or whatever else it may be. Particularly for a second marriage situation, there might be something a little bit more descriptive that's written there. You then have a sip of wine, down, and pick up a new one. My partner in life is alive. Remember, you're doing this across the table with red wine. My partner in life is alive. I've died. Children are alive. What do I want to see happen? Write that down. Have another sip of wine. Put that bit of paper down. Pick up the next one. I've gone. My partner in life has gone. Our children are alive. What do I want to see happen? And even there, we might say, and when do we want to see happen? And just write that down. Just write that down. Another sip of wine. It's getting interesting by now. And then you put that down. And then, you know what, Ray? You pick up the bit of paper again. And at the top of that bit of paper, you write, and unfortunately, you see this, you hear this. It's catastrophic. My whole family has been wiped out. Terrible, terrible accident, motor vehicle accident, airplane accident, whatever it may be. We've all died. What do I want to see happen? And then you write that down. I won't go into the detail of it now, but there is, if you don't have a will and you don't have beneficiaries, according to what the law says, what's commonly called the statutory order, did you know that the whole of your estate goes to the government? Now, if but for no other reason, really, if there's nobody alive and you can't think of anybody to put it off to, just remember my name and how to spell it. I'll be very happy about it. Not the government.
So this isn't a plug for your favourite charity, then?
No. And you see, you then take those bits of paper. You've just created an estate plan.
But the interesting thing. The interesting thing, though, Peter, is that when you think about what you've just said in that piece of paper, I guess, the next document is the enduring power of attorney. And I guess some of the discussions around an EPOA get up in this, well, what happens if something goes wrong? So an incapacity, so a motor vehicle accident where you actually survive, but you're not cognizant. You're sitting there, you're on heart and heart monitors, and your quality of life would be questionable, blah, 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 but you are still alive. And so the EPOA becomes a really relevant document at that point, doesn't it?
Look, it does, but remember, Ray, it's not you I'm talking about, it's them. It's my partner in life who has all of those problems, not me.
That's correct, because you're no longer cognizant and it doesn't really matter because,
I want to be greedy here. So the risk I'm looking to manage here is my partner in life suffering that accident, my partner in life having the disability, and I'm left to pick up the pieces.
Mm.
I'm left to manage those pieces. I'm left to somehow finance my continuing living as well as finance the medical needs of my partner in life. But if I can't access the money because it's a joint bank account that requires both to sign, if I can't sell an asset because it happens to be in her name, if I can't literally move homes because I want to live closer to where my partner in life is living, they're now in an advanced dementia home. And if I can't do any of that for the simple reason that she did not put in place an enduring power of attorney, a simple document, that's such a shame.
Well, I think I think the simplicity of your explanation, Peter, goes a long way, and I won't labour that point. I think you've harnessed that very, very nicely. Let's move on now to super, because again, one of those things around superannuation is there's a fair bit of confusion still around the estate plan and super. And I think we need to treat them quite separately, don't we? If we kick off the conversation around superannuation and nominations around super, they are two separate things. You know, you've got your estate and then you've got super. They are quite separate items, aren't they?
Look, they are, and I accept that they are, but I just want to go back and say, when you're doing the estate plan, ignore your structures. Ignore super is in a structure.
Damn.
Complexity of how things are held stop you from putting a plan in place. The professionals will work with your plan and put that into the appropriate documents it needs to go into for whatever reason it needs to go into. So turning to super, let's understand this. Out of the 27 million Australians that exist, some 12 million of them are employed or have been employed. Perhaps it's 13 or 14 million now when I put it into have been employed. And because of the compulsory superannuation system we have, those 13 or 14 million people will have superannuation. And those 13 and 14 million people will have children, will have partners in life, will have other family members. So, you know, superannuation is a significant asset. It's a significant part of modern estate planning. It's a significant thing that needs to be managed. And the main point that you're seeking to get across with me here now, Ray, is that it's not part of the will. It's not. Or at least it can be. It can be part of the estate, but it's also not. Superannuation stands alongside of and next to, and it's not automatically part of the estate. So having a will alone is commonly not enough to deal with superannuation. And that doesn't matter whether you have a self-managed superannuation fund or an independent superannuation fund. Just having a will alone is most commonly not enough. What's needed is to think through what's called the nomination process. Just to think through that nomination process. And that nomination process is about having someone express who it is that they would like to see that benefits from their superannuation.
Okay. All right. We need to move on in the interests of time, Peter. So guardianship is probably one of those things that I might actually defer for another time because we're going to run out of time today. One of the interesting ones that you talked about at the beginning, I'd like to flesh out in the remaining time we've got on today's show, is a statement of life's wishes. Now, that's not really a formal document, is it? That's something that you would just get as you say, that powerful little tool, a piece of paper and a pen. Tell me a little bit more about your thoughts around a statement of life wishes.
Well, yeah, for this, really what I'm talking about is, if, to put it simply, you're being kept alive by a machine. Is it your wish that the machine is kept going or turned off?
Okay.
If the request of the family is, would you like to consider donation, a body part donation? Are you aligned, yes, or do you have a personal preference that says no? Do you wish to be cremated or buried? These are expressions of life wishes. They're not at this stage a legally binding document. So saying, hey, if I'm suffering from such a condition that I can't enjoy independent life, please turn the machine off. That doesn't mean that the law says the machine must be turned off. It's a decision that can be made at that time, but having the statement of wishes gives the message to the people that surrounds the person and helps them to be able to make fully informed and relevant decisions at that time. And in the instance of there being a dispute of some form, and you hear this, families fighting, the fact that a document like that exists does allow the law then to at least understand what the person themselves wanted. Because when people are fighting over what to do, or turn the machine off, or are we going to donate body parts, having something sends that message, which is a real message of relief as much as it is of statement of wish.
I guess one of those fascinating things is that it provides clarity, and rather than leaving a bit of a mess. And so, to get to your point that we started with, where somebody doesn't give a bugger, I think being able to give clarity to your loved ones after you've departed, I think is a good thing. And one thing I might mention to our listeners and viewers as well is that statement of wishes doesn't have to necessarily be in writing. The great wonderful thing about technology today, it can be a video, it can be a YouTube, it can be anything in that regard. And again, look, Peter, one of the really sad things about a half-hour show is that the time absolutely flies by, and I've still got a ton of questions that I'd love to brace with you, but we're just about out of time. So look, Peter, I'd like to invite you back, and we've got so many other things that we can talk about. It's been really fascinating, and one of the really good takeaways, I always like to leave people with a takeaway. They can look you up, Peter Bobbin. We'll also have some links on our website and our blog. So, Peter, thanks so kindly for being with us on Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about money, finance, and investing. And hopefully we'll have you back again.
Thank you. I'd love to, Ray.
Wonderful. Thanks again for your time.